Alright guys, such a comic again, so I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The CDL returns tomorrow, big roster updates going down last night. Cloud9, it seems, pulling the trigger on a serious change. Simp, though, has his perspective on exactly what's happened behind the scenes, which may have been different to what we saw on the public-facing side, but also what's going on with Mercules. Why is this OpTic situation not unfolded as we thought that it may well do? Why is he still stuck in challenges compared to any of the other options that these CDL teams could have given him? Will changes still be made over the next couple of weeks? Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. There's obviously plenty going on as always, such as tweets like this. But I wanted to start with some Lion Man cards. These were the Ravens cards for the stage, and well, it was pretty horrific really. I mean, the Search and Destroy wasn't good, 4 in 5. Very rare that you see Slasher have a 0.75 in Search, usually his best mode. I mean, even TJ being negative in Search and Destroy is rare as well. So clearly there's something they've got to get on top of there, because their hardpoint being 5 and 7, you know, that's not dissimilar to where they were at the start of the season, but when they were there, their control was better and their Search and Destroy was really good. This stage was not true, of course. Vivid was the card here, but I mean, look, he played the majority of their games and wasn't especially good, but they brought in Dylan Rex, and did they get any better? Well, no, not really, but they played 2 games against Thieves, so guess you got to take it with a bit of a pinch of salt, and then they, of course, played Rocket about of the tournament. But lots to think about for the Ravens, because they started the season very well. I liked this team when it was put together in the off-season. I thought that they were potentially a dark horse threat. They kind of showed that, but even early on in the season, I was not, let's say, convinced they'd be able to uphold it and maintain it throughout the course of the year. Gwinn continues to be their best performer, certainly in an online domain, right? But again, they went to LAN and didn't really get to play all that many series. Rex is in the team now. Is it going to work out? Look, they're still going to be at champs. They're fine in terms of qualifying there, so I think that taking the risk they did probably isn't the worst idea, but yeah, they've got to figure a few things out in their practice over the last couple of days if they actually want to turn it around, because right now Ravens are looking like a free 10 points. For most teams would be confident anyway they'd beat them. OpTic, they completed a three-peat. Back-to-back top 8 finishes. Didn't expect to say that going into the year. Again, 2 players were standing out. It's Shotzzy and Dashy. Shotzzy's Search and Destroy was honestly insane, like genuinely insanely good. I mean, kills per rounds, 0.91. First Bloods, 26 and 8, best in the lobby, or best in the league, sorry, in both of those. And in Search and Destroy, Dashy was highest in his role in the entire league in Search, 122 damage per round. So, look, but they still somehow only ended 4 in 5, and I think that's, you know, it speaks a lot to OpTic and their issues, and what we've been seeing lately from them is that somehow Shotzy's able to get 26 First Bloods to 8 First Deaths, and then not able to convert a massive first blood advantage into round victories consistently. Of course, one of the more notable things here is that, yeah, Huke didn't have a great stage, but neither, of course, did Skyz. He's averaging very similar numbers to where Kenny was, and in terms of impact, kills per 10, damage per 10, the numbers are just pretty bad in general. So there's plenty to think about there for the OpTic team going forwards, but they have, we think, decided that this is going to be the roster for the rest of the year, at least the roster for this weekend's games, because, well, they could still potentially change their minds. These teams that haven't signed Mercules yet could go on to do so if they wanted to, but that situation is pretty fascinating. We'll get to here in a second. So, like, again, not a great stage from OpTic. Dashy's probably been their best player this year. Shotzzy, look, his decision-making at times is still a question mark, but in terms of impact when he was on form, and especially at the Major, I think he played, you know, he was really impactful at the Major. It's just the way that OpTic played around him, and Shotzzy is not immune from criticism at all, as many OpTic fans have been making clear over the last few weeks. It obviously didn't go to plan. So, big questions what they're going to do, but it seems they're making the decision to stick it out. We also do have the Burger King card. Unfortunately, this stage that went to attach. We are, of course, going to be seeing in a second here what Cloud9 might potentially be considering doing. This is the Scrappy card. We don't yet know what the number is in the top left-hand side, but, well, it's being designed. Of course, he was the MVP of the stage, so he gets the special rainbow card that Lion puts together. 8-in-1 record. Now he's got his 3 championship wins. Is it going to be a 99 overall? Is it going to be a 98 overall? It's got to be right up there, right? So, yeah, we'll see where that one goes over the coming days. But let's talk about challenges and what has happened over the last 24 hours to shift the tide of what's happening in the Pro League. As I said, we'll get to Cloud9 in a second. First of all, what a boy, he's back in business, right? So, yeah, of course, Trey's joining us on the shows and everything out there in Dallas for the DreamHack event, but he's also been playing around for a little bit of time now, getting involved in the coaching side. And Rafi hit him up, was like, yo, Trey, you want to coach our team? And yeah, makes sense. So, pretty fire. Hopefully this works out pretty well, but of course they confirmed that Trey's the new head coach of OMIT yesterday, and then shortly afterwards they confirmed the team that, well, he will have under his domain on some regard, and that team is pretty fascinating, especially compared to what we thought they might well come out with, because this man on the left-hand side, I thought this is pretty funny from JoeDeceives. You guys remember the first walkout they did with Mercules, when, I mean, the guy didn't really know where to go. Joe was like, yo, you've got to stand over on this side, and then, I mean, even Merc for his, like, second and third walkouts, he was very much, like, looking at the floor to see where the little X is on the floor where the guys are meant to stand, and then he's like, you know, is he meant to clap? And then the boys turn around and then he's kind of stood there on his own. I thought this was brilliant. So yeah, what a performance from Mercules this weekend, frankly, from top to bottom. And he's back to challenges. So this was confirmed that OMIT, their Brooklyn team, will indeed be Prolute, Stanley, Brack and Mercules. Now, a number of these players were linked to Cloud9. That was a discussion, and well, I mean, it was at least talked about, right, that Brack could have been over there or whatever, but often this is how things go. You get things confirmed in challenges, and then that sets the picture for who's there, who's not there, to potentially go to the Pro League teams. But Mercules back down in challenges, and this, I think, should be a bit of a surprise. Now, look, I do believe that he at least had an offer. Like, I think that Cloud9 were interested. I'd be shocked, frankly, if they weren't. But, as I said yesterday, the day before maybe, if you're Mercules and you have the opportunity to go to Cloud9, or you have the opportunity to bide your time, you're probably going to do the latter, right? If you join C9, you're in the race for the World Championship, the team might be kind of chalked, you know, Sib is probably on that Cloud9 team, they're going, okay, where do I go next year? You know, is there a way to, like, go to OpTic, right? That type of thing, because Sib's talked about that before. So, I don't think that joining Cloud9 right now is optimal. Like, it may be necessary for some, but I think for Mercules, his stock after the major was so high that if Cloud9's his only offer, and especially if it's not like an especially compelling offer with loads of money, then why would you do so? And as I said yesterday, okay, if you go for a Pro League team, you're guaranteed to go to the World Cup, but if you join a good challengers team, you can still qualify for the World Cup, right, and make it there anyway. So that will, of course, be his plan. And maybe it's not over yet. I mean, you never know. Typically, we would have a much longer gap, right, between where we are today and the matches restarting. But of course, that's not how it is. We're seeing right about now, the matches are starting tomorrow and the teams have made their changes, right? So maybe there's a possibility that next weekend or the weekend after, they might consider a move. Now, there is, I think it's the 14th of May, technically the roster lock for the World Cup. So the idea is, even before Major 4, the roster lock is in effect for the World Cup. Now, that deadline, I think, was the same thing last year, and yet it was a little bit flexible, right? So I think that the whole EWC roster lock conversation, it likely, maybe they changed the rules this year and it actually is strong, fast, or whatever. But I think it's plausible that if teams actually do want to make a change after Major 4, or even, let's say OpTic, for example, Minnesota Rocker win Major 4, and OpTic don't qualify for champs in this hypothetical scenario. Then Rocker will make it, OpTic will not make it, and if OpTic want to blow it up, will they be really forced to run the same team at the World Cup? I mean, technically by the rules, yeah, but if they say to the World Cup, hey, we'd like to do this, maybe they'll be able to do it, right? So that's the conversation. Mercules, I think biding his time is not a bad idea right now. I guess the big question for many is he actually just in challenges, or is he on Toronto, right? Like, is he going to be on Toronto's bench? Because as it stands, that's not been confirmed. He may well decide to do so and sign a contract with Toronto to, get some sort of salary. They will then have, rights to sell him at some point to somebody else, and that may make some sense to Mercules, but also it may not. I think if you're Merc with his stock the way that it is, you're probably better off right now just not signing a contract until OpTic come knocking on the door, or until, Falcons come knocking on the door, something like that. Because if you do sign a contract with Ultra, let's say, to stay on their bench for now, because that's what it would be, quite frankly. And okay, maybe they turn up to Major 4, get slammed with beans, and they're like, you know what, Merc, you're coming in for champs, right? Like, maybe that's not impossible, but it's pretty unlikely to be real. So if you sign with Toronto, you're then effectively saying to Toronto, okay, you can choose what you want to do. Like, when a team comes knocking, they will then have the choice on whether and when they sell. And then it gets a bit more complicated, whereas if you're Mercules and you're simply in challenges for Omit, you know, everything goes right. If you've not signed any deals, you know, there's nothing really stopping you from going to a team. Okay, maybe a couple of grand goes Rafi's pockets for the Omit buyout, but it's not going to be as much as it would be if a CDL team was to sign you. So that's the fascinating development of last night. The other big piece, of course, though, is Cloud9, because, as I say, these guys were going to, and have, it seems, made some changes, right? They obviously needed to blow it up and try something. Now, Capsidel was linked to Cloud9 a few weeks ago now, and there was a rumor, I think this is actually basically true, that they trialed Capsidel in their team instead of Attach. That's what they did back then. But over the last, let's say, you know, 48 hours, the theory has been that actually no, Mack is going to be the one to go, and Capsidel is potentially the man to join. Now, yesterday we saw rumours that it was potentially going to be Craze, right, from the Challenger side. Obviously, Capsidel's there too, but Craze hasn't got a chance before now coming in. And, well, that seems to no longer be the case because, well, Craze isn't really being linked to that spot so much longer. And actually, Dante, Sib, says it straight up. So this guy, Ant, I don't really know where he got this from, but he says that Craze got screwed out of a spot because Sibilant's DMDL threatened to bench himself if they didn't pick up his boy, which, you know, presumably in this case would be Capsidel, I guess. And now Craze gets hoed in challenges because of it, because he's no longer on that team when Mercules joining back in. Sib says, don't know what you're talking about, mate. We never, you know, we just saying anything for clicks, huh? We never try to get Craze. So shutting down the idea that he threatened to bench himself, and also shutting down the idea they ever were interested in Craze. I think my question is it a one-man move? Is it a two-man move? Because, I mean, look, we saw the lineman cards yesterday, but there is some evidence to suggest that maybe Mack and Attach could be on the chopping block there. We heard Craze linked. We heard, I mean, there was rumours about Brack, right? And even Proloot, the names that we've now seen signed to the Omit Brooklyn team. So what's actually going on? Is it just going to be minus Mack plus Capsidel? Is it going to be minus Attach plus Capsidel? Is there going to be a two-man move? Is a one-man move enough to really twist the, you know, change the tides of their season? Not necessarily. So, yeah, we'll see what happens over the next couple of days, but it does look like Capsidel back in the league, which I think is pretty exciting for him. The final thing I wanted to mention really was just the general feeling around OpTic. Whether they should have done it, whether they shouldn't have done it, because, look, Mercules is there for the taking. If you want to go get him, you can go and get him. The other CDL teams didn't step in. As I said yesterday, how many of them realistically should have or would have looked at Mercules? I mean, look, probably a couple should, and maybe they could have actually got something done, right? Cloud9, I think we're interested, but I don't think it makes so much sense for Mercules. But if you're a Falcons, maybe if there's money on the line, certainly if you're OpTic. I mean, the opportunity was there for OpTic to kind of do what they did with Ghosty a couple of years ago that helped to some degree save their season. That's the way that I think most OpTic fans are looking at it. My opinion, honestly, is I don't mind sticking it out. I mean, I know that it sounds bad because, look, and I never like teams that are settling, if you know what I'm saying, right? Like, I always get frustrated when franchises effectively make decisions that seem to imply they're not really trying to win. They're just here for the ride. But I also think that in this particular case with OpTic, the season's been so horrific that trying to actually win anything from now to the end of the year is a long shot, whatever you do with the roster. And they've already made so many changes already. And of course, there is some great degree of risk if you make another change. I mean, look, the OpTic team seems to think that they're making some progress in their practice, in their understanding, in their gameplay. And if you just make another change and bring in somebody else who's new, then, you know, you just, again, limit the options for the team to really grow and develop, right? So I think that you can look at it both ways. Look, Skyz, is he great at this game? No. Is he the ideal pickup for OpTic? Not in my opinion. But is this OpTic's best chance of at least having a respectable conclusion to the season? Possibly. And look, if they turn up this weekend and get slams, or next weekend and get slams, they can probably still go and get Mercules if they want, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Interested to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, whether OpTic have made the right call. I don't hate it, But yeah, I don't know what you guys think. And actually, Brian Stats did a tweet on this, and he said, you know, people don't seem happy, but going into your fourth 20 with a fourth different roster might not be the best idea. The last time OpTic placed top 8 3 events in a row was in Ghost, where they also fielded 3 different rosters. They stuck it out with the same roster going into event number 4 and placed 3rd. Stability is what this team needs. You can argue they need stability. You can argue the team ain't good enough. They got to blow it up. I'm intrigued to what your guys' thoughts are in the comment section below. But very much intrigued to your thoughts down there. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.